September marks Deaf Awareness Month. Now, this is a period used to advocate for the rights of deaf people, creating awareness on their challenges and highlighting the importance of inclusive education. And in 2023, South Africa recognized sign language as the 12th official language. And this year, the global theme for the month observation is No Human Rights Without Sign Language Rights. The Wits Center for Deaf Studies has, for almost 3 decades, championed the rights of the South African deaf community with programs such as the High Hopes. And now this is an early intervention program supporting families in their deaf child's first 1,000 days to ensure a managed transition and to access opportunity for children with hearing loss. To discuss this and more, we are joined by Wits University lecturer and coordinator for the South African Language and Deaf Studies, Dr. Lucas Magongwa, who is also joined by his interpreter, Augustine Letlalo. Good morning, Doctor, and thank you so much for your time. So firstly, I think it's important for our viewers to understand your journey as a doctor. You lost your hearing as a very young child. Tell us your story.
I was born hearing. At around the age of 8, I became deaf. And after that, that's where I was able to go to a school for the deaf in Hammanskraal, in the American School for the Deaf. And that's where I was exposed to sign language for the first time when I got there. And then I started learning the language from there. And yeah, at the time, schools for the deaf were only up to standard 5. Because of that, I decided that I should go to a mainstream school to get to matric, and I did that. I wanted to become a teacher. After completing my standard 10 at the time, I applied at a college, and they rejected me. They said, no, because you're deaf, we're not going to take you. I tried universities as well. They said, no, as a deaf person, you can't be a teacher. But I lobbied one university, they accepted me, and then I was accepted to do a B.Ed degree there, and I studied at that university, and I've completed my B.Ed degree, and I later went to a school for the deaf as a teacher, Good Learning School, and then I was promoted to Northwest High School for the Deaf, where I was a teacher. I became a principal there, and later on I moved on to Wits University Center for Deaf Studies, where I'm now a lecturer.
That's very interesting, and I'm sure everyone watching right now would want to know, how does teaching as a deaf person work? How are you able to teach? It sounds like a basic question, but I think for the understanding of everyone who's watching at home.
As a lecturer, a deaf lecturer who's teaching hearing people, the university had to make sure that they employ an interpreter for me, to make sure that when I teach students who are hearing, when I use South African Sign Language, I've got an interpreter who will voice for me. I teach like this. I sign in my classes, and I will use the interpreting services to make sure that I connect with my students. They use the interpreter as well to make sure that they connect with me as well. So when they speak, the interpreter will send back to me. When I sign, the interpreter will voice for me. That's how I teach. I'm
interested to know, like, do they deduct the interpreter's salary from your salary? On a lighter note.
No, obviously not.
Yeah.
Yes. It was a bit of a concern, of course, that if they were to employ an interpreter for me, they will have, they will be reluctant, of course, to do that. But then, no, it wasn't the case, because they understand that it is important for me to have access, and to my student as well to have access. Similar in the same way that people with physical disabilities will have access to ramps, access to buildings in the form of ramps, university pays for that, so they were willing to actually pay for my services as well.
Which leads me to my next question. I'm sure a lot has changed from the time that you were a child at the age of 8 and having only been able to have specialized schooling up until, you said, standard 5, if I'm not mistaken, to now. How much have things evolved? And do you think that institutions are now more inclusive for especially people who are deaf?
Yes, I think, yes, of course, things are much better. Like I said earlier, deaf people were only allowed to go do vocational after completing their standard 5. Vocational training like your welding, your woodwork. We were only allowed to do that. But then at the moment, things have changed. Deaf people are able to excel in academia. They are able to complete their matrics and go to universities. We have inclusion in schools as well, where South African Sign Language is used as an access for deaf children who want to go to mainstream school. Teachers out there are now able to sign. So the education is improving, and the use of technology as well is also helping us. In the past, we didn't have access to this technology that is making things easier for us, but then at the moment it is much better. We've got a number of deaf people in universities. Like I told you, when I went to university at the time, I think I was the only deaf person in the country who was able to get to study at a university at the time. Okay. But at the moment, we've got a lot.
Okay. I'd like to educate our viewers on how to, let me say, treat a person who's deaf. What were some of your frustrations growing up as a young child? And even now, as an adult, what do people need to understand? What are the do's, what are the don'ts when it comes to how we navigate around deaf people?
The important thing is attitude for me. When you meet a deaf person, do not look down on them and say, "Oh, shame, they are not able to speak." Respect them as people. Yeah. That is the important thing. Don't look at them as someone who cannot. No, treat them as an equal. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to be pitied. Yeah. We want to be treated as equal. Respect us, communicate with us. If you're not able to communicate with us in South African Sign Language, use pen and paper or use gestures. Don't just ignore us and do everything for us as deaf people. No.
And how?
Okay. For example, we've got associations. We don't have associations for deaf people. We've got associations of deaf people where we work with. You need to work with us, not for us. That's what is important as hearing people include us, make sure that we are part of the programs that are meant to help us. For example, in cultural settings, for example, in our culture, for example, you'll find that a deaf person at home, they are not included in cultural issues where, for example, they have global negotiations. You are an adult in the home, but then you're not invited to take part in such, because just because you are deaf, you are not exposed to that. That is not right, for example.
Let's talk about that. Communication, how important is it? I mean, now that the sign language is the 12th official language in South Africa, how important is it for everyone to know sign language?
I think it is very important because deaf people cannot learn to speak. They cannot learn to speak, so it's difficult for them. And on the other hand, hearing people are able to learn South African Sign Language. So I think it is important for hearing people to learn South African Sign Language so that they can include deaf people. For example, when you access public services like your social development, for example, you meet hearing staff members or hearing public servants who should be able to provide services to everyone. So in those instances, people should learn basics so that they are able to accommodate everyone. Just basics, very basics. Because we feel left out if we are not being catered for in the language that we understand.
Okay. And before
that's what I believe.
And before we let you go, Doctor, and very briefly, what is your message out there for that young 8-year-old Dr. Lucas Magongwa, who's also struggling to adjust to being deaf, living in a world where most people can hear? What's your message?
I would like to say that aim, have goals, and know what you would like to achieve in your life and work towards that. If you don't have goals, you are not going to be able to achieve. I would like to say to all the children out there, identify a role model, someone that you would look up to. For example, myself here, you look up to someone like me, someone who has achieved, and then keep the person who would keep you motivated, and you believe that you would want to be like that person one day, and keep on working on your goals.
Fantastic. Doctor, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being such an inspiration.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.